It was 1:23 a.m. on April 26, 1986. The city of Pripyat, Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union, slept peacefully. Children dreamed. Couples lay in warm beds. Night shift workers walked quiet streets under a sky that glowed faintly orange, the way skies sometimes do near industrial plants. Nobody panicked. Nobody ran. Nobody knew that just 3 kilometers away, inside Reactor No. 4 of the Vladimir Ilyich Lenin Nuclear Power Plant, the worst nuclear accident in human history had just begun. By morning, invisible poison filled the air. Within days, an entire city of nearly 50,000 people would be abandoned forever. Within years, the disaster would help bring down a superpower, and within decades, it would permanently change humanity's relationship with nuclear energy. This is the story of Chernobyl. To understand Chernobyl, you must first understand the Soviet Union of the 1980s. The USSR was a nation built on pride. Soviet science, Soviet engineering, Soviet achievement. These were not just accomplishments, they were ideological weapons. The Soviet nuclear program was the crown jewel of that ideology. To admit weakness in nuclear technology was to admit weakness as a civilization. The Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, located near the city of Pripyat in northern Ukraine, was one of the largest and most powerful nuclear stations in the world. It had 4 operational reactors, with 2 more under construction. It powered entire cities. It was a symbol of Soviet mastery over the atom. Pripyat itself was a model Soviet city, purpose-built in 1970 to house the plant's workers and their families. It was modern, clean, and well-stocked. Unusual luxuries in the Soviet system. Residents had an amusement park, a river, cultural centers, and schools. Young engineers and scientists raised families there. Average resident age was just 26 years old. It was, by Soviet standards, paradise. The plant used a reactor design called the RBMK-1000. This reactor had a fundamental design flaw, one that Soviet engineers were aware of but had never fully disclosed or corrected. At low power levels, the RBMK reactor became dangerously unstable, prone to rapid, uncontrollable power surges. It was, in the most terrifying sense, a ticking machine. And on the night of April 25, 1986, a routine safety test was scheduled. The test was designed to answer a simple question. If external power was lost, could the residual rotational energy of the turbines generate enough electricity to power the reactor's emergency cooling systems during the brief gap before backup diesel generators activated? It was a legitimate safety test, but it had already been postponed 3 times over the years. The plant management was under pressure to complete it. There were quotas to meet, schedules to honor. Soviet bureaucracy did not reward caution. It rewarded production. The test was led by Deputy Chief Engineer Anatoly Dyatlov, a man known for his authoritarian management style and intolerance for hesitation. That night, a series of compounding errors began to unfold. First, the test was delayed by nearly 10 hours due to increased electricity demand from the Kiev grid, meaning the night shift. Workers who had not been briefed on the test would have to conduct it. Then, during the power reduction phase, operator Leonid Toptunov accidentally dropped power too low, nearly to 0. The reactor fell into a condition called iodine pit, a state where it became extremely difficult to sustain a chain reaction due to the buildup of xenon-135, a neutron-absorbing byproduct. The correct, safe action was to shut the reactor down and wait. Dyatlov refused. He ordered the operators to pull out the control rods and raise power. This was a catastrophic violation of the operating procedures. The reactor was now operating in a dangerously unstable zone, far outside its safety parameters. At 1:23:04 a.m., the test began. 13 seconds later, a reactor operator noticed something terrifying. The power was rising. Fast, not slowly, explosively. At 1:23:40 a.m., Senior Reactor Control Engineer Alexander Akimov ordered an emergency shutdown, the pressing of the AZ-5 button, which was meant to drop all control rods into the reactor and stop the chain reaction. It didn't work. The RBMK reactor had another design flaw. The control rods had graphite tips. When inserted, they initially caused a brief spike in reactivity before suppressing it. In the already unstable reactor, this brief spike was enough. The power surged to an estimated 30,000 megawatts, 10 times normal operating capacity, in a matter of seconds. At 1:23:47 a.m., two massive explosions ripped through reactor number 4. The first explosion was a steam explosion. The second, debated by scientists for decades, was likely a prompt criticality explosion, a runaway nuclear chain reaction. The 1,000-ton reactor lid was blown off the building. The roof collapsed. Burning graphite and radioactive material were blasted into the night sky, landing on the surrounding roof and grounds. The reactor core was exposed to open air. Chernobyl was on fire. Within minutes, firefighters from Pripyat and the surrounding area arrived at the plant. They had been told it was a roof fire, a standard industrial accident. They wore no protective gear beyond their normal firefighting equipment. Nobody told them they were walking into a radioactive inferno. Lieutenant Pravik and his crew climbed onto the rooftop, directly adjacent to the burning reactor core. They touched pieces of glowing graphite with their bare hands, not knowing what they were. The radiation levels were so extreme that dosimeters, the devices used to measure radiation, maxed out and became useless. Workers and firefighters were absorbing lethal doses in minutes. One firefighter later recalled that the air tasted like metal, that his skin tingled, that there was a strange, beautiful blue glow coming from the reactor. Cherenkov radiation, the visual signature of intense nuclear activity. They thought it was pretty. Within hours, the first responders began vomiting, their skin flushed red. They were suffering from acute radiation syndrome. Of the 134 emergency workers who developed ARS, 28 died within the first 3 months. Some of their deaths were so rapid and so gruesome that open caskets were impossible. Their bodies had to be buried in lead-lined zinc coffins, sealed forever. These men, the firefighters and plant operators of that first night, are remembered as heroes. They ran into the fire without understanding what it was, and that ignorance cost them everything. As dawn broke over Pripyat on April 26th, the Soviet machinery of denial went into motion. Plant management reported to Moscow that the situation was under control, that there had been an accident, yes, but the reactor was intact. This was a lie. The reactor was destroyed. But in the Soviet system, telling the truth about failure was not always safe. Pripyat residents woke to a normal morning. Children went to school. People lined up at stores. A wedding was celebrated that day in the city. Outdoor markets opened. People breathed the air, sat in parks, let their children play outside, all while invisible radioactive particles rained down around them. The Soviet government did not publicly acknowledge the accident until April 28th, 2 days later, and only then because Swedish monitoring stations detected abnormal radiation levels and began asking questions. Sweden's Forsmark nuclear power plant had detected radioactive contamination on the clothing of its own workers. When they searched for the source, it wasn't inside their plant. It was coming from the east. Europe had found Chernobyl before the Soviets admitted it. Even then, the Soviet announcement was minimal, a brief one-sentence statement that an accident had occurred and was being dealt with. No mention of scale. No warning to neighboring countries, no public health guidance. The evacuation of Pripyat finally began on April 27th, 36 hours after the explosion. Residents were told to bring only what they needed for 3 days. They would be back soon, they were told. They left their furniture, their photo albums, their pets, their entire lives. Most never returned. The city of Pripyat became a ghost town, sealed behind barbed wire, frozen in 1986 forever.
Over the months that followed, the Soviet Union mobilized what may be the largest disaster response in human history. Between 1986 and 1990, an estimated 600,000 people, called liquidators, were sent to Chernobyl to contain the disaster. They were soldiers, miners, firefighters, engineers, helicopter pilots, and ordinary civilians conscripted from across the USSR. Many were told only that they were performing their patriotic duty. Many were not told the truth about radiation levels. Their tasks were extraordinary and terrible. Helicopter pilots flew hundreds of sorties over the open reactor, dumping sand, lead, clay, and boron to smother the fire and absorb neutrons. The cockpit radiation levels were so high that some pilots completed their missions in minutes and were immediately evacuated. The helicopters themselves had to be abandoned, too radioactive to use again. Miners tunneled beneath the reactor to prevent a potential second explosion, a feared China syndrome scenario where the burning fuel would melt through the floor, hit the water table, and trigger a massive radioactive steam explosion. Conditions in the tunnels were unbearably hot. The miners worked in shifts of just a few minutes. Bio-robots, the liquidators' dark nickname for themselves, were sent onto the rooftop to manually shovel radioactive graphite debris off the edge. The remote-controlled robots sent to do this job failed. The radiation fried their circuits, so humans did it instead. Each worker was allowed just 90 seconds on the roof before their dosimeter maxed out and they had to leave. Many suspect their actual doses were far higher than officially recorded. By November 1986, a massive concrete and steel structure called the sarcophagus was built around Reactor No. 4, containing the radioactive ruins. It was an engineering feat completed under conditions no engineer had ever faced. It was also imperfect. Built quickly, under pressure, and over decades, it began to crack and deteriorate. The human cost of the liquidators remains disputed to this day. Soviet-era records were incomplete, falsified, or sealed. Estimates of long-term health consequences, cancers, birth defects, psychological trauma vary wildly. The official Soviet death toll was kept artificially low. The true toll may never be known. Today, a 2,600 square kilometer area surrounding Chernobyl is known as the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone, a no-man's land where human habitation is officially forbidden. Inside it, Pripyat stands exactly as it was left on April 27, 1986. The amusement park, never officially opened, meant to debut on May 1st, still has its Ferris wheel, now rusted orange against the sky. Schools have textbooks open on desks. Hospitals still hold medical equipment. A gymnasium has a collapsed roof, and through the hole, trees have grown up through the floor. Nature, paradoxically, has reclaimed much of the zone. Without humans, wildlife has flourished. Wolves, lynx, wild boar, and even a small population of Przewalski's horses roam freely. Forest has overtaken roads, trees grow through windows. The zone has become, unintentionally, one of the largest wildlife reserves in Europe, a strange radioactive rewilding. But beneath the beauty lies danger that will persist for generations. Cesium-137, one of the primary radioactive isotopes released, has a half-life of 30 years. Strontium-90, about the same. Plutonium-239, released in large quantities, has a half-life of 24,000 years. Parts of the zone will not be safe for human habitation for centuries. In 2016, a new containment structure, the new safe confinement, an enormous arched steel dome, was slid over the original sarcophagus at a cost of $1.7 billion. It is the largest movable land structure ever built. It is designed to last 100 years. After that, the next generation will have to figure out what to do. Behind every statistic is a human being. Vasyl Ignatenko was a firefighter who responded to the plant that night. His wife, Lyudmila, was pregnant. She sat by his hospital bedside in Moscow for weeks as he died of radiation sickness. She held his hand as his skin fell away. She lost the baby. The radiation absorbed through proximity had affected her unborn child. Lyudmila's story was told in Svetlana Alexievich's Nobel Prize-winning book, Voices from Chernobyl, and later dramatized in the HBO series. She survived. She never forgot. The self-settlers, hundreds of mostly elderly Ukrainian women, refused to leave the exclusion zone after the evacuation. They returned to their villages illegally, choosing to live out their lives in contaminated homes rather than die of loneliness in resettlement apartments. Many lived well into their 80s and 90s. They tended gardens, kept goats, and said that the land, even poisoned, was theirs. The children of Chernobyl, in Belarus, which received the heaviest fallout, thyroid cancer rates in children skyrocketed in the years following the disaster. Before Chernobyl, childhood thyroid cancer was exceptionally rare. After, hundreds of cases were diagnosed. Most were treatable, but they served as living proof of the disaster's reach: invisible, delayed, insidious.